You're welcome to another edition of Egbosa Insight. Today, I'm dealing on a topic called social construct. Social construct. It sounds academic. However, that is not the case. The word social is the interaction that exists between or among living organisms within an environment or an ecosystem. The construct, it is interpretation of the activities that exist. That is the construct. That interpretation of the relationship of those activities that exist is the construct. What is important to know that a construct are not necessarily truth. They're not necessarily truth. It could be the perception. What is important is that it is an accepted interpretation of that interactions. That understanding informs the way people relate with one another in that given environment. Let me drive it home with a logic. I have in my hand here a card. This is called driver's license. How do we know it's driver's license? It is, I agree that with this, I have permission to drive a certain class of car stipulated in this card. That's a construct. And I cannot use this as a means of exchange because the society has not agreed that it should be a medium of exchange for goods and services. However, I have another object here, paper with colors and figures written on it. This I could use for a medium of exchange for goods and services. A means of exchange for goods and services. Because society has agreed it has to be used in that format. That is construct. A country exists by people if they agreed and for defining the relationship in that environment, how they are going to relate with each other. That's what how a country exists. Without that agreement, setting boundaries on the relationship, a country doesn't exist or a nation doesn't exist. Construct. Social constructionism is the theory that people develop a knowledge of the world in a social context and that much of what we perceive as realities depend on shared assumptions. From a social constructionist perspective, many things we take for granted and believe are objective realities are actually socially constructed and thus can change as society changes, evolve with time. It is important to know that every aspect of human life is a construct. Let's take, for example, the family unit. The family is generally believed that it's made up of more than one or two persons. Where is the place of Africa in global social construct? In fact, that is the premise, the rationale behind this topic. It is quite easy to say that Africa has no particular influence on the global social construct because of the way Africa has been reduced, undermined in world affairs. However, has it always been so? Let us have a quick look at history and see what has happened along the years. We understand that Egypt, ancient Egypt, was the center of civilization and human race. And the wheel, which is a symbol of locomotive, every aspect of transportation today took its formation from the invention of the wheel. And this was in ancient Egypt. It is upon the invention of the wheel, every creative idea on how to move men and machinery started evolving. As Egypt was the center of civilization, they were defeated by the Greeks. The Greeks understand that Egypt has a great knowledge. They came to Egypt to be schooled in their knowledge. The Egyptians taught the Greeks how to write. They taught them mathematics. They taught them astronomy. They taught them philosophy. They taught them spirituality and medicine, which is about health. Why do we know this? Because the Greeks agreed. They said so in most of their writings. But when the Greeks were defeated by the Romans took everything the Greek has written down that have helped their own civilization and imbibe it in their own development. But the Romans never ascribed their knowledge to Egypt. They ascribed to Greek because they didn't want to give accreditation to an African people. And we know that Rome became the world empire. It grows so fast to the present day, Great Britain. The whole of Europe were all part of Roman Empire. But with time, the empire crumbled and breaks into different European kingdoms. During this period, Europe fought devastating wars and destructive wars within and among themselves. This brought them again to Africa. Now they came to exploit, and colonize. And coming to Africa, they were even surprised with the level of civilization they found there. Because of their arrogance and superiority mindset, because they are now the conqueror, they never accepted that Africans were so much developed. Things they met in the kingdom they developed, especially from the artifacts they saw, they would say they were aliens who brought them there. That it is superiority complex. Africans now makes them to accept the Europeans as superior. So everything they have that already working for them, they have to forgo it and start following what the Europeans says to it now. Our history, our education, our religion, our cultural values and system were all destroyed, eroded, and accepted the European ways of doing things. For example, today now, there's no documentation of African history or African kingdom that is made by African that is accepted as authentic until it is confirmed or collaborated by a European scholar. That is inferiority complex. So the conqueror tells your story. Our religious system was eroded, replaced it with different something. If our marriage system, we have a way of uniting two people to become two or more, to become a single unit of family, accepted by the construct that was made in place. Today, what happens? Every African marriage now, for example, in Nigerian marriage now, they do what they call native law and custom, which is our African construct of acceptance of a legal marriage. They will, after doing that, they want to do court registry. They will do worship, place of worship marriage, which means our construct is to become inferior. However, Europeans, they only do either place of worship registry, marriage, or town hall registry. You see, either of them is valid, accepted as legal standing. But in Africa, a inferiority complex makes us to always do three things: waste of resources, waste of time, and every other thing. Mindset change. Our spiritual concept has fallen. How about the respect among families, or the way elderly parents are taken care of by their children? Today, it is falling gradually. That it might come to a stage, our old people will be living, or elderly parents will be living with elderly homes, just like it is in Europe, severing the harmony, the love, relationship that existed. Because before, our family was in an ecosystem. They were living together in peace and harmony. They show love, caring for parents. It is once the child is born, he is nurtured to adulthood so that he or she will also take care of the parents. But what's happening today now? That aspect of construct is already deconstructed. How about the religious system? Mode of worship changed. Cultural values changed. You see, today people go to internet. What do? They don't even have respect or what on the moralities anymore. What is value we show? Because we show that very complex that are the content of Africans in the social media space today is really appalling. Very minor knowledge driven, information driven. It's always so superficial, with ladies, both young and old, behaving like I cannot really put words to describe it. In China, the TikTok that is in China is different from what you have in Europe here. There is with more than 60% of it is educational content. But Africans today will just jump into those things that are not educational, that will not uplift us. You see how the construct we had before have been deconstructed because of what you see. The only possible thing I have seen from this social media something is from the Hollywood. Before now, before the 60s, Africans were regarded very ugly because of the thickness of their lips and the size of the buttocks of the female. Europeans put them in museum and in museum and zoo to see because they were looking ugly, according to them. Mindset. That was the belief that having a big lip is ugly. But the Hollywood was able to change it because their celebrities started putting injections to increase the thickness of their lips, called the buttocks. It is that has the listening grace, the only negative thing, the construct that was constructed by the Europeans unknowingly and reconstructed it for our favor. But unfortunately, the Africans who are already endowed with voluminous lips and big buttocks, now they are even joining the bandwagon. That is still the inferiority complex. Instead of them to appreciate what they have, they are even engaging with accompanying hazard that goes with those artificial insemination they put in their body. The Europeans or the foreign invaders, they know much about the African and their people, the quality, the strength of Africa. They know it more than them. Whatever they see we are increase the strength of Africa, they will withhold it because they are in search. Let us talk about what happened in 1996 because they what they call genotypes. Those scientists who study genetics and the DNA, they wanted to know the impact of DNA in human behavior, in every aspect of human life, in character, in education, that intellect, or in emotion, every aspect. So what they find out about the intellect of the DNA, they find out the higher the number of DNA series a living being has, the higher the intellect or the possibility of having genius in that class. They went with, first of all, the monkeys. They find out they have 3 DNA series. They went to the gorillas. The gorillas had 4 DNA series. They went to chimpanzees. The chimpanzee had 5 DNA series. And that's okay. I will know that the monkey is less intelligent than the chimpanzees. So they will not say, let's not try the human being. They came to humans. They try among themselves, the Europeans and other parts of the Europe world. How many DNA series there are? They have 6. 6. So which means they are a little higher than the animals. But out of curiosity, they said, let us try the African race. They came to try Africa. They tried. How many DNA series do we have? 9. 9. 9. That means there is a high possibility of having genus among the African race. What did they do? They copyrighted this discovery so that it not be published, so that it not be taught in schools. Do you see? Withholding information, because that would have given you a sense of pride. Understand that you know it is positive feelings would have given you a moral boost. It would have deconstructed certain misgivings we have about ourselves. So if Africans have to really move or effect positive change in the global construct, the social construct of the global race or human race, they have to, at this time, be conscious, deliberately conscious and determined to pursue, to deconstruct all false construct about Africans and reconstruct a construct for themselves through what they call African Renaissance or awakening of our being. That is the way we'll be able to tell our story as it is.